Hello and welcome to UC Today. I'm Senior Editor Tom Wright, and today I'm joined by Joe from GoTo by LogMeIn and Dave from BECG Group. How's it going, guys?
Good
Yep,
to be
good,
here,
thank
Tom.
you.
So we're going to be talking about hybrid work today, but to start off with, I thought it might be good to do some quick introduction. So I'll go to you first, Joe.
Thanks, Tom. I work with LogMeIn, and I'm a senior manager in the global product marketing team. And we've been at the coal face of remote work and hybrid work over the last 18 months and longer. Our business dates back to 2003, and remote work's been a core of what we do. But we provide video conferencing tools, webinar platforms, security tools, and remote support tools, and really keen to discuss where the industry is heading and how we think we can best part insights to all the audience today.
My name is David Smith. I'm the head of IT of the BCG Group. We're an award-winning multidisciplinary communications group dealing with public relations and public affairs.
So it's been a tough time for many businesses over the last couple of years, but I'd be interested to get your thoughts around the challenges they're facing now as they look towards hybrid working.
David, do you want to kick off there with your frontline experiences with BECG?
The frontline experiences, yeah, sure. I mean, hybrid working, there are many challenges that obviously it's a really big open question for hybrid working. You know, it's not just about being able to work, it's also about the people, isn't it? But from the BCG's point of view, the challenges that we faced weren't actually that great because we actually had the foresight beforehand to make BCG a bit more agile, as it were. And we created more of a hybrid environment, as in a server hybrid environment at that point in time, to allow people access to obviously documentation, data, emails, etc., which made our workforce more agile. So when COVID did strike, and everyone was obviously your liberties were taken away and everyone was behind the closed doors, it did actually mean that people could carry on working. From our perspective, people could just get straight to their data straight away. But the biggest challenge we faced was obviously keeping people connected. It's keeping people connected all the way through that because a lot of our team are quite a single young people, and they do live on their own a lot as well. So they've got that isolation there as well. So that's something that we needed to get around as well. So this is where we had Microsoft Teams in play, and that became a really pivotal tool in our organization at that time, keeping people together, not just from a business point of view, but from a personal point of view, and keeping everybody's spirits up as well. Yeah. So yeah, we sort of went into the pandemic in a good position in some respects, but there was room for improvement as well, and that's sort of where this discussion will go on a little later, I'm sure.
It's been such a challenge front and center for a lot of organizations. But I think what David's talked about and where BCG had a bit of fortune, like a lot of businesses did, they were a bit more prepped. They were a bit more visionary. They had seen the benefits of a kind of a hybrid work world. They were moving in that direction anyway. And for a lot of organizations like that, they were able to pivot that bit easier than a lot of other companies because they were a bit more set up and they had the wheels in motion to do that. What David talked about, a couple of challenges, what we see generally in the industry is when people go hybrid, they tend to have three distinct challenges, particularly when it comes to tech, right? One is helping all those workers, right, to communicate and collaborate and work together, right, to stay connected. Whether that's they're at home, whether in the office, or whether they're anywhere and everywhere else. And that could be a customer site, it could be a coffee shop, it could be an extended week and a holiday, it could be anywhere. And making sure that they can all still work and communicate and collaborate and brainstorm, and also quite importantly, brainstorm with customers and prospects and suppliers and partners, because sometimes we forget about that external communication requirement. So certainly from a communication and collab standpoint, a lot of companies having challenges there. Security is a big one when it comes to a hybrid workplace. The attack surface over the last year and a half due to the pandemic and due to so many people being, setting up home offices in bedrooms and kitchens and sitting rooms and working wherever they could find an internet connection. That caused the attack surface for cyber criminals to actually grow about 6 to 8 times. Okay, so all these IT teams have a much bigger playing field now that they have to secure for their workers. And what we see with that is a lot of a movement towards things like password management, multi-factor authentication, single sign-on, being able to identify and understand who's accessing your systems from where and when is really important. So many people now using personal applications, home Wi-Fi, public Wi-Fi, just much greater risk for organizations. And then it comes support, right? We were so used to being within one office, four walls, right? If something broke, I'm sure David used to get hounded by people in BCG going, "Oh, this isn't working and that's not working." Then drop up to IT on the second floor, that knock down to the IT desks to try and get some things fixed. Obviously, you can't do that anymore. IT could be at home; they could be working hybrid. People can be hundreds of kilometers away from their IT team. So when they need support, when they need help to make sure everything's working in the right direction, having those remote support tools in place is really important. So really, like the three big challenges: it's collaboration, it's security, and it's supporting a workforce in these multiple locations.
And Dave, looking at BCG specifically, what have you been looking to achieve through your recent technology adoption?
Yeah, sure. So we discussed at the beginning there that we were in a good position and we were trying to make the workforce more agile and more mobile because previously BCG, when I first arrived there in 2018, they were all still chained to a desk, so they still had desktop computers. And for a PR, PA company, getting out in the field and talking to people, they're obviously making notes while they're out and about and they're doubling the workload when they come back. So we made them more agile in that respect. But during the pandemic, obviously, we had the lockdown and things. Joe quite rightly alluded to security. Obviously, people are now connecting to their wonderful home routers and things. Some are not the best in the world, and a majority of them still have the default admin passwords on them. Which can cause major problems, as you know. But again, as part of our security structure, we actually employed artificial intelligence actually onto our network systems, but that was only good within the network environment, obviously within the office environment. But fortunately, the application that we used came out with client sensors, which meant we could roll those out onto the actual individual laptops via remote tools. And actually just ensure that security is still there, so we can detect if any malicious activity is going on somebody's laptop on their device at home rather. So as we were going through as well, we found out that our VoIP telephone system wasn't really up to scratch. All we could do with it was divert it to another number. That's all we could do with it. We didn't have any soft phones on machines or anything like that. There was no mobile application offered by the provider at the time to allow us to obviously let the workforce install that on their mobile telephones. So we started the quest of trying to find a communication tool, a telephone communication tool that would work in this environment. I mean, obviously the market is absolutely littered. When COVID struck, the market just exploded with loads of software houses and loads of telecommunication houses all selling their wares. But we'd already invested at the very beginning of the pandemic in GoToWebinar. The reason being, obviously, that public consultation involves meeting the public. But obviously in a pandemic, we can't meet the public. So how are we going to get around that? So we did that with GoToWebinar. We found GoToWebinar was really great because it integrated with our existing CRM system, which meant from a marketing perspective, we could carry on collecting people's information in that respect. But it also meant that we could carry on the public consultation with people. It's just in a virtual environment. So we went from doing physical exhibitions and discussions to actually doing virtual digital exhibitions and discussions. So between our studio team who actually develop websites to actually deliver an exhibition online so people can go and get all the relevant information they might need on a particular development that's going off. And they can attend the webinar as well and ask questions as they go through that. So again, we've still got that interaction between the business and between the general public in that respect. So GoToWebinar really saved our bacon in that respect. So as I mentioned with the communications, obviously looking at various platforms, and GoToConnect was brought into the mix. So we looked at GoToConnect, and after lengthy discussions and lengthy tests, we actually decided that it would actually work for us because it gave us absolutely everything we needed. It gave us the soft phone for the devices, whether that's a Mac device or a Windows device. It gave us an application for the mobile devices as well, so we could pop it on an Android or an iOS device. And it also gave us an extra benefit of being able, one, to administer our own PBX, which we weren't able to do before. And also it gave us the extra benefit of an extra meeting room as well, an extra audio visual sort of conference room. So we had GoToMeeting, which is inbuilt into the GoToConnect, which enabled us to set up more things like surgeries for MPs and things like that who might want to conduct a surgery with the general public, because not everybody's got technology as well. The older generation in the public don't necessarily like computers, don't necessarily like tablets and things. So they like the traditional, let's have a telephone call, where GoToMeeting obviously afforded us the ability for people to dial in, because at the time our Teams wasn't actually connected to a PTSN, so we couldn't actually send, make or receive telephone calls through Teams. So we integrated that directly into our systems. We rolled that out at the beginning of this year, and that's enabled our workforce, again through the many lockdowns that we've had now, to keep in communication with the clients now as well. Over telephone, we're not having to rely on a dodgy mobile phone signal. We're actually getting that professionalism in place, and the integrity of the business and the professionalism of the business carries on going forward at that point in time. And we are continuing to look into the development of BCG and the hybrid working. Now that we've adopted a new contract, a new working contract, we have one in our company called Work That Works, which means it's the hybrid environment where people have a choice. They have a choice to stay at home and work at home for 3 days a week, and to pop into the office maybe 2 days a week. Again, that brings back that human contact with people, the collaboration with people, because we tend to collaborate better when we are face to face. But obviously, audio video meetings facilitate some great, some good discussion, but there's nothing better than actually physically being in person. Probably the same as the conversation we're having now. We'd probably be better in person than we are, being self-conscious on these sorts of things. So yeah, we're going to continue investing in hybrid working and in the individual as well, because the way that we're doing it is individual first, business second. And what I mean by that is we need to make sure that the individual is not frustrated, the individual hasn't got multiple systems to deal with, and they can just do what they need to do best. What they do best is their job. So, and the business can only benefit from that.
And then, Joe, from a vendor perspective, you've obviously had to reshape your own teams to get ready for remote and hybrid working, but also make sure that your technology portfolio is doing what your customers need from a remote setup. So, how have you been looking to evolve the portfolio?
So yeah, Tom, I think what David was alluding to there and everything he discussed about is a really good example of all the challenges that have faced so many IT teams around, not just the UK, but around the world as well over the last 18 months. We touched on a few things that has really made vendors not so much think, but probably, progress our plans at a more rapid pace than we had. And, one thing's for sure is that technology has been front and center, very much for the last 18 months, and it will continue to be that way as we move into hybrid environments. And people require a multitude of tools to continue to do the tasks that they were doing pre-COVID, maybe more in person and with more meet and greets with customers and clients and suppliers. So one thing's for sure is we need to try and unify that. As vendors, people do look for phone systems and they look for cloud-based phone systems, and BCG are using GoToConnect, and they've seen how that's working with their Microsoft Teams platform. Okay, they use GoToWebinar to speak to customers and suppliers and partners to cast out on a larger scale. They also use things like security tools like LastPass and stuff like that to make sure to get through all these different challenges that they have. And what we've been working really hard behind the scenes is to bring, historically what were point solutions that we used to sell. We used to sell webinar by itself. We used to sell video conferencing meeting tools by itself. We used to sell cloud phone systems by themselves. We're bringing all those in, and we've just brought all those in into one complete platform because we want to make it simple and easy for people like David to procure, and more importantly, simple and easy to manage and administer when they have it in, adding users, removing users, working with dial plans, being able to troubleshoot and see how people's experiences when it comes to meeting solutions. So bringing all that to one platform is really important from our side. But it's not good enough for us just to think about our tech, right? If we think about only our tech that LogMeIn owns, we're not thinking about the world that IT managers live in and that IT teams operate in every day, okay? We have to think about their entire tech ecosystem, and we need to go, how does our tech work with all that other tech? And we've talked about Microsoft Teams, okay? Microsoft Teams is a big success story over the last 18 months. Now, a huge amount of our customer base are using Microsoft Teams. It's crucial that things like GoToConnect, our VoIP solution, works with that. It's crucial that the meetings component of GoToConnect is very complementary to the Microsoft Teams meeting component. And it's crucial that things like GoToWebinar not only works with things like Microsoft Teams, but also integrates into those CRM platforms that companies are using. And of course, everybody might be using Salesforce, might be using Dynamics, Zoho, Zendesk. There's a myriad of tools out there. You want to make sure that the tech stack that vendors are providing plays nice with all those other technologies to make the lives of the IT teams far easier when it comes to managing and administering those tools. So that's where the vendors have been. That's where our focus is. That's where our R&D dollars is going into, to make sure we can bring our products together, to unify it, to make it simple to procure and manage and administer, and to make sure we play real nice with all the other technology out there that is crucial to the day-to-day operations of our customers.
And my final question for you both, I wanted to ask you about culture. So how can technology be used to create an inclusive culture around hybrid work, specifically for the people who are working from home while some may be in the office?
So yeah, Tom, great question, right? So, how can IT create a more inclusive environment, a more hybrid culture for people that are working remotely? It's not easy. And one thing I would say is that, yes, there are organizations that have embraced remote working and hybrid working before COVID. There are success stories that we can look to, that we can take learnings from. But the scale at which this has happened over the last year and a half, and the lasting impact that's going to have, like over half the UK workforce in 2022 is going to have flexibility offered to them. That's a tipping point. That has never happened before. Pre-COVID was maybe a third, 35% of the workplace. We're now getting over half the UK workforce. And that includes all roles. You go into knowledge-based roles, you get the 60, 70%, right? Are going to have that ability to work hybrid. It's going to be a really interesting time to see how that cultural aspect evolves, the challenges that emerge from that, how we do make sure that there's parity amongst the workplace and that people don't feel that because they're not in the office, they're a bit isolated. IT do have a really important role to play in that. We touched on the collaboration, the security and the support challenges, right? So it is important that, if my technology doesn't work and I need help troubleshooting, that I'm not penalized because I'm not in the office, or I don't get like a lower level of service. There's ways of doing that, okay? There's obviously some things, like if the laptop is physically broken and it needs to go somewhere to get fixed, okay? But that's the same on site as well. There might just be more of a ready-made replacement. But maybe things like being able to use your own personal devices in instances like that, and having a bit kind of a bring your own device policy at work, stuff like that can level the playing field for people when they're not in the office. When it comes to communications, and this is probably a really important thing, and I actually heard an interesting company. There's technology that means you don't have to do this. I'll talk to you about that in a second. But I heard an interesting explanation, anecdotal feedback from a company. It was a big company. Their name escapes me right now, but they made a rule that if there was a meeting and one person was joining by video conferencing, regardless of the amount of people in the meeting, they all had to join by video conferencing, right? Because they wanted that to be parity for all meeting attendees, okay? Now, in-room meeting technology has become far more advanced, far more specialized, far more affordable than what people used to pay for teleconferencing rooms in the past. But most video conferencing providers, including ourselves, we have our GoTo Room products. You can bring in the right meeting technology to give a very good hybrid meeting experience where you have people coming in from remote locations and people in the office, okay? So making sure that technology in those meeting rooms are kitted out, and that you're considering all those use cases and all those potential places people can join from, that they can be heard, and that they can get their, that they can listen equally to how people are speaking. And one of the things like that is making sure that in-room meeting technology has the ability to level the noise and the voice, right? So that the person closest to the phone isn't the most dominant speaker, that it can reduce the volume on that person and raise the volume on the person further away in the room. That the cameras move to the speakers, so the people from the remote side can actually see and understand and see what everybody else is seeing. Also, if you're whiteboarding, collaborating, there's tools, again, there's really like fantastic new features and a lot of these in-meeting room technologies that can make that experience with a remote person just as good as if you're in the room as well. So around that communication standpoint is one. Security standpoint is another one as well. A lot of people actually have security concerns. A lot of it comes from maybe not being aware of what to do if something goes wrong, or if they are using their own devices, that are concerned maybe from a personal data perspective. Making sure they're equipped to be secure and they have that peace of mind on security, both when at home and in the office, is important as well. So there's a huge amount an IT team can do, again, around that, making sure everybody has the same collaborative experience, making sure everybody has the same support experience, making sure everybody has the same security experience. If you get that right from an IT standpoint, you go a long way to making sure someone doesn't feel like they're hindered when they're not in the office, or that they're hampered from conversations and not getting the full picture. So for me, that's what IT could do to really be a lot more inclusive and make sure that everybody in that working environment feels they're part of the conversation.
Yeah, I think you've just covered everything that we've just been changing recently, to be honest, Joe. We actually kitted out our meeting rooms again. We ripped out all the old technology. We popped in the new technology, the Logitech tab, to make it easier, to make it more inclusive as well, like you're saying, and I picked up on that point where you said, you can't remember the company name. I can't remember it either, to be fair, but I did read the same article where they said, if somebody, just one person comes in on the, on Teams or whatever it may be, then everybody joins. And it's a great thing because it keeps everyone equal. And that's what it's about. It's keeping everyone equal and keeping that good, trust with each other as well, and not letting people feel left in the corner. Because too often, I don't know if you've ever felt it yourself when you've actually been in a physical meeting, probably not with you, Joe, but some people can sit in the background and some people's voices isn't heard. But this is an opportunity in a platform where everybody's voice can be heard through the hybrid working environment as well. And you're quite right with security as well. People might use their own devices because theirs has died and it's going to take a week to get you a new one, or 2 days, or wherever it's going to be. And people are genuinely concerned about their own products being affected by a work network or work data. But again, we can provide that assurance through IT. We actually secure all our mobile devices down with Meraki systems as well, which again gives people that peace of mind. So if something does occur, we can just jump on it straight away. We've actually developing and expanding our internal IT department now as well, based on hybrid working as well, because we have more people to look after in respect, because there's a lot more support calls coming from a home worker than there is from somebody who is physically in the office. Like you say, when you're in the office, they come and knock on your door and bother you. But at home, it's like they need help. They need help straight away. With the automated systems that we set up, they can just reach out straight away. Somebody's back with them within 15 minutes. And we can help facilitate either a software repair remotely, or if it's physical hardware, we can get one to them next day usually. So it's just making them feel, making the end user feel valued, making the end user feel part of the team and not just somebody who's out on the fringes. We're all in this, regardless of whether it's 100 miles between each other. We're all in this, together, for coining a phrase, so to speak. But yeah, so yeah, we do work proactively in IT and BCG itself, but IT as a whole can work with the end user just to make them feel part and parcel of the company and not just on the edges, as we say.
Okay, guys, I think that's a great place to leave things. Thanks so much for joining me, and thank you everyone for watching. If you enjoyed this video, you can find more great content at uctoday.com, and we'll see you next time.